What is going on, beautiful people? It is Wednesday, July 12th. Netflix has released its newest NFL series entitled Quarterback. We're going to talk about it. I am not going to spoil it for those of you who haven't seen it. I haven't seen it either. However, I am going to issue some homework today. Saquon Barkley says, hey man, if these negotiations ain't hitting on nothing, I might sit out until week 1. Shit could get really interesting with the Giants. I have some things to say about that. He won't be the only one either. I could see the Josh Jacobs situation in Vegas. I said this on the last podcast. Turning ugly. We'll see. Anyway, your man Louie T is in the building. Back like cook crack. Let's chop it up. Talk some ball. You are locked into the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 348th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me today on the show. Today, I want to talk about the new Netflix documentary, Quarterbacks. Know what? Let's just jump right into the proceedings this evening, shall we? I think we shall. Let me try this gym on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, Netflix has been teasing this documentary, Quarterbacks, entitled Quarterbacks. And it's giving you behind the scenes access that we rarely get with players, specifically of the quarterback position. Generally, you only get this kind of in-depth, behind the scenes, personal footage and access when it's something done specifically for that player and their brand, like when Tom Brady was doing the Facebook series and allowed the cameras to come into his house. Or it's one of these series like Hard Knocks where, you know, you're at training camp and every now and again they'll come out to your house before you leave for training camp and it'll start like they did with Jameis Winston, you know, that one year they came out to his house and, you know, they did it with Andy Dalton and you'll see that from time to time. But it's not they're not following that player only, right? That's Hard Knocks is an entire team thing. This is a series specifically following 3 players, all at the most important position in all of, I think, sports. However, in particular in the NFL, quarterback. And it's a weird group that they selected. Very interesting. Now, Mahomes makes a ton of sense. He's probably the most popular player in the league right now. He's the best player if we're just talking in terms of the league, but he's probably the most important player to the league right now as well, because again, he plays the quarterback position and he's doing things on the field that we've never seen done before. And it doesn't hurt that he has a very eccentric family. His wife has rubbed some people the wrong way. I don't have a problem with his wife, but I know she's rubbed some people the wrong way. His brother is the one that has really pissed me off. He did it when he came to Washington on the Sean Taylor tribute game, danced all over the 21 that they had roped off. And he's just an ass. He's one of those guys that's entitled because his brother is nice and you ain't never done shit. And so he's just riding a wave of all the hard work his brothers put in. He's one of those dudes that was like, you know who I am, right? Or you know who my brother is, right? Like, I don't give a shit who your brother is. Who are you? Get out of my face, clown. So he's having some issues because when the you know who my brother is card don't work, then he starts to get aggressive, as we saw with the female at the club. So he's gotten into some trouble. He's the one that kind of rubs people, you know, totally the wrong way. But I just find Patrick Mahomes to be extremely interesting. And so he is the main guy in this series, but they're following two other quarterbacks, and it's not two quarterbacks you would think would be very high on the list. If you're talking about of the 32 quarterbacks that started in the NFL last year, I don't think the other two guys that you would think of for a documentary like this would be Kirk Cousins and Marcus Mariota. But I don't know who they approached to do this first, and if they were turned down by some of the other more prominent names at the quarterback position. Obviously, Brady wasn't going to agree to this. Rodgers probably wants no part of this. Josh Allen doesn't seem like a guy that would like to do something like this. I think Joe Burrow would have done this if they would have asked him. I don't know if they did ask him or not, but he seems like a guy that would be interested in something like this. Just going through the list of the top tier quarterbacks, you feel like there would have been maybe 3 or 4 other guys that would have made a ton more sense for this, but ultimately, somehow they landed on Marcus Mariota and Kirk Cousins. I find Kirk Cousins to be extremely fascinating, being that he was a former Redskin, and he caught so much flack, and so many people love this shit on Kirk, and they think he's just this choir boy, because he's such a devout Christian, and his background of his dad being a pastor, and him just growing up in that environment. I think so many people just think, oh, he's a choir boy. Like, there's nothing, rough around the edges about Kirk Cousins. And last year you saw a side of Kirk that you'd never seen before. Kirk was, operating outside of the Kirk Cousins box that everybody had put him in. He was rocking the chains. He was dancing, having fun. They had a big season in the regular season, that is. And Kirk was living it up, and we're going to get to see that. I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the things that Kirk went through last year. This is the perfect year to follow Kirk Cousins. They picked the absolute perfect year to follow him. Mahomes won the Super Bowl, so it was the perfect year to follow him. And you know what? Marcus Mariota had a damn good season last year. All things considered, that was not an ideal situation that he was placed in. They don't have any talent whatsoever offensively, or at least they didn't. They drafted a rookie receiver, Drake London, and they had Kyle Pitts. Pitts gets hurt, relatively early in the season. Drake London's pretty much having to, carry the receiver position as a rookie. They didn't have a lot. They did have a strong run game, and Mariota was taking care of the football, and it gave them a chance early in the season. They were in a lot of ball games. They were a tough team to play against. And so we've always talked about Mariota, and me specifically, I can't speak for you. I've always been someone that has felt like Marcus Mariota is soft-spoken. Does he care about football? Is he a real leader? Like, these are the things we question about Marcus Mariota when he came out of Oregon. These are the same things we applied to Justin Herbert because of Marcus Mariota. Don't act as if you didn't have some sort of bias towards Justin Herbert because of what happened with Marcus Mariota coming out of Oregon. I know I was guilty of it. I'm not going to sit here and act as if I wasn't, somewhat put off of Justin Herbert by, Marcus Mariota coming into the league and not being that successful with the Tennessee Titans. So I think these types of shows, and a lot of times when you get behind the scenes access, that's when you really get to know someone. I can't tell you how many times I've had a preconceived notion of someone in my head that I may have come across once or twice. Like in my former life, when I was a merchandiser and I would be at these stores and I would come across someone that actually worked at the store. And they could have, and you never know what somebody's going through the one time you run into them, right? So I could have run into somebody when they had a rough day, go of it. They came in, they just got to work. They just clocked in 15 minutes ago. They just came from home. They just got into it with their wife before they came to work. They pissed off. They thinking about the argument. And so when I see them, they mean mugging. They got a scowl on their face and they looking like, don't approach me, bro. And so you see that, you're like, yo, That dude right there, man, that dude look crazy. He got a nasty attitude. These are the things you start making up about a person that you've never met, you've never talked to, but just because you look at them and you think to yourself, this is what the energy that they're giving off. And then you finally sit down and talk to him, and you're like, yo, you're a pretty cool ass dude, right? Like, I had him all wrong. I've done that so many times in my life. You never judge a book by its cover, right? But these types of, documentaries, they pull back the curtain. They give you insight that you previously didn't have, so that you can start to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. You may come out of this thing still not liking Kirk Cousins. You may not like him even more after this, but at least you'll have all of the information after you watch the documentary. Same with Marcus Mariota. You may not respect Marcus Mariota as a quarterback right now. You watch this documentary, you may have a totally different perspective and view on Marcus Mariota, the football player, Marcus Mariota, the person, and how those two meld, together and formulate a whole different opinion of what you really had for him going into this thing. This is what these types of shows do. They give you a different perspective. And I can't wait to consume this. I'm trying my best not to just, because I have an addictive personality. So I'm very selective as to what, this is why I don't do social media a lot. And let me apologize to all of you who have hit me on IG at various times. I looked at my IG the other day, and I have at least 25, I'm not bullshitting you, I have at least 25 to 35 unread messages. I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize to you in advance. I don't get on social media very often because social media is the ultimate black hole, and it is endless. And if you're not careful, you will waste a lot of time on social media. And so the new thing that has captured my attention are shorts. And so I'm trying to make sure that I don't get caught up. I'll find myself every now and again getting caught in a round of like 15 or 20 minutes worth of shorts. And then I snap out of it. Like, oh, what am I doing? All right, I'm doing it again, right? Because there've been times where I've sat down and I've watched 2-3 hours of shorts at a time. Crazy, I know. So I apologize to all of you who have hit me up on IG and I haven't responded. I haven't seen it. I haven't been on IG. I got to get through a lot of those messages and hit y'all back. I'm so sorry. But in any event, this series is going to be badass. And because I have an addictive personality, I'm trying not to just sit down and gobble it all up in one setting, because I will binge watch the hell out of something like this. And it's only 8 episodes. That's what I'll tell myself. And they're only about an hour, bro. That's 8 hours. You talking crazy. That's a work day. There's no way that if you sit down at midnight, and that's how I can get caught up. Caught up like Usher. Is I'll sit down at midnight, pop in the first one. Damn, that shit was good. Watch the second one. All right, I'm just gonna watch one more. Watch another one. Be like, damn, I can't leave on that one. Next thing you know, you look up, it's 4:28, and you're like, I ain't watching another one. Now you gotta get up 7 in the morning and you dead ass tired. I'm trying to avoid that, but eventually I'm gonna binge the hell out of this thing. I know it. I'm gonna try to do it in 2 separate settings. What I'm doing right now is I'm issuing some homework. All right, so I'm not gonna put the pressure of having you watch this by Friday. Monday, however, you would have had the entire weekend, no excuses, no equivocations. You should be done with this by Monday. If you don't want to have it spoiled for you, do not show up here on Monday, because I am warning you that Monday I am going to spend a large chunk of the podcast talking about this series, which I would have watched in its entirety. Okay. So once again, Monday is a spoiler alert for all of you who haven't finished or started even the series Quarterback on Netflix. If you've watched it already, feel free to show up on Monday when I'm live and we can discuss. If you haven't and you don't want to have it spoiled for you, do not show up on Monday because I have no mercy. Okay. I will be freely talking about the entire series, episodes 1 through 8. If I find it to be so good and so captivating that I have to break these up into like each episode or like 1 through 4, and then the next podcast I come back and I talk about episodes 5 through 8, then I'll do that. If I find it to be so good that I can't just talk about it all in one, podcast, then I'll break it up into sections. I think I'll be able to talk about it all in one podcast. I feel like I should be able to do that, but we will see. So again, I'm issuing homework. You have the assignment. Finish the series quarterback by Monday. So roughly you have just slightly under a week. The weekend is probably when you should be able to get it done. I don't know what you have planned for the weekend. I know my weekend is somewhat booked. So if I'm going to watch it, it's probably going to have to take place either on tonight into tomorrow, or because I got a live stream tomorrow night. So I don't know if it's going to take place tomorrow night. Friday's probably not going to happen. Saturday, maybe it could happen Saturday night and Sunday night. We'll see. I'll have it done by Monday. I assure you of that. So we'll see. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the next segment of the show and social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Y'all know what it is. So, Saquon Barkley has been very vocal throughout this entire process of him being franchise tagged, wanting a new deal. He's been transparent, for the most part, pretty much saying, look, I'm not asking to reset the running back market. The Giants know where I stand. I feel like he can say this to us. I don't know what his agent is negotiating on his behalf. He can say, I'm looking for a fair market deal. I'm not looking to reset the market. And his agent behind closed doors is looking to reset the running back market. And it's not a fair market deal because keep in mind, Saquon Barkley's rookie season was phenomenal. His second year was solid. And then I think it ended prematurely with an injury. His third season ended with injuries. He was, was marred by injuries. And his fourth season, which is the one that just passed, was excellent. So in 4 years, you've had 2 really good seasons, 2 seasons where you really didn't play all that much. I think year 3, he might have played a little bit more than I'm giving him credit for, but he still was largely ineffective and injured. So at the end of the day, they didn't pick up the 5th-year option because of all of those injury concerns, because this was a new group coming in. And frankly, they didn't believe they needed you because you hadn't been on the field anyway. You showed your worth to your team last year. You were the best player that they had on either side of the football. And the offense really ran through Saquon Barkley. When he was on, they were on, and they were a tough team to stop. And he wants to be compensated for that. If everything he's saying is legit, not trying to reset the running back market, just looking for fair market value, and he's taking into consideration that the 2 years that he was injured and how that factors into the decision-making process moving forward, then I think the Giants are making a huge mistake not finding a way to get this thing done. What I'm looking at this situation as is you're going into year 2 of Brian Daboll, who had a fantastic first season in New York with the Giants. And the expectation now is that we're a good football team. If you're the Giants and you're a Giants fan, we're a good football team. We did all of that with next to no talent on offense, a quality defense, and a quarterback that not many of us believed it. We did all of that last year with that. Now you go out and you make all of these moves. You sign Paris Campbell. You go out and trade for Darren Waller. You sign you a linebacker in free agency. You draft a couple of guys that you think are going to come in and help you right away. And all of a sudden, and you re-signed your quarterback, Daniel Jones, to a long-term deal, and all of a sudden, the expectations are now through the roof. This is the type of situation, this Saquon Barkley contract situation. They have to understand that this is the type of situation that can derail momentum that has been built with this organization from what they did last season. They have to understand that Saquon not only is a really good football player, but he's a leader in that locker room. And it's the type of distraction, because if he's not at camp day one, if he does not get this long-term deal, if he sits out, it's New York, guys. This isn't Denver. They're not in Charlotte. Okay. This isn't the Las Vegas media that you're dealing with here. This is the New York media. This will be a problem all camp long if he is not present day one of training camp. And you're going to tell them, hey, guys, we don't have any updates. Saquon isn't here. We just want to deal with the guys that are here. That's fine. That's cute. That's nice. But the New York media ain't trying to hear that shit. You're going to get a steady diet of Saquon questions. They're going to want updates if he's not there. Another day, no Saquon, any updates. They're going to have to deal with that. And if they have the ability to deal with that, block it out, continue to coach, and find a way to be productive in that environment, not have it affect them at all whatsoever, more power to them. But if they don't handle this situation, and Saquon being vocal in the media and saying, hey, I'm not looking to reset the running back market. I'm just looking for a fair market deal. I want to be here. I love my teammates. I want to be in that locker room. If they don't get something done with him and this thing drags out and he's not present until week one, and then he struggles or the team struggles, we're going to come back to this whole situation being a distraction. And again, the Giants right now have a ton of momentum. The last thing you want to see happen is all of that momentum be halted by this contract negotiation. So look, I'm not panicking. If I'm a Giants fan, I'm not panicking yet. I'm not even tripping. And they can do whatever they want to do with Saquon. At the end of the day, deadline spur action. And we're not there yet. We're getting close. We're getting close. Next week is the deadline for a franchise tag E to be signed to a long-term deal. I've already said that if out of all the running backs, Saquon Barkley is the one that I thought could get a deal done. I would be shocked if he doesn't. I still think there's a deal for Saquon Barkley in New York, that they'll avoid all of that drama that I just brought up, and they'll continue to ride the wave of momentum that they built last year into training camp. I think the Giants are going to get something done. I think they're a smart enough group to understand what's at stake here. Because not only is he a damn good football player, he's a leader in your locker room. You have to set the tone by paying those in the locker room who have done it the right way. You can't come in here as a new group and have a guy that was a holdover from the last regime who's doing it the right way, who was the best player on his team, who busted his ass, who did all the things you asked him to do, and then don't pay him. And I know there are some philosophical differences with a lot of people in terms of paying running backs. I get it. And with Saquon's injury history, I get it. I understand that. And that's a part of the negotiation. That's something that his side has to consider, and that's something the Giants definitely have to consider. But in saying that, with Saquon missing so many snaps over the last 2 out of the last 3 years, I really think that puts him in a different boat. If he's able to stay healthy, there's a lot more tread on those tires. And Saquon's such a remarkable workout warrior that he'll be more like Adrian Peterson in terms of how he ages. Even when his best isn't there anymore, he'll still be a difference maker because of the type of shape he keeps himself in and how he works out in the gym. So I truly believe that there's probably a little bit more tread left on the Saquon Barkley tires than most running backs at his age at this point of their career, because he has missed essentially 2 years of ball, or a year and a half or whatever, a season and a half, bare minimum. So whatever the case may be, we'll see what the Giants decide to do. I think they're ultimately going to sign him to a deal. Josh Jacobs is the guy that I really see holding out till week 1. I don't see, Tony Pollard holding out. I don't see the tight end in Jacksonville holding out, Evan Ingram or anything like that. I think the only guy that I could really see having a real axe to grind is Josh Jacobs. But Saquon putting this out there, I think it's just him, leveraging, the little bit of leverage that he does have, and putting this out to the masses to light a fire under the Giants, let them know we're getting real close to this deadline. I just want you to know what my intentions are. I'm not afraid. And he's not saying he is going to sit out until week 1, but he's letting you know the threat is there. There's a possibility that I could decide to do that. So we'll see what happens. That's an interesting dynamic. Anyway, I digress. Let's see what you guys have to say. Put this, you guys know what it is. If you're out there, you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. If you want to ensure that your comment gets read, use the super chat function to jump straight to the front of the line and have your comment read. So, do have a super chat. We'll get to that. My guy, Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Kyle writes, "Sup, Lou? How are you?" I'm doing good, Kyle. What about yourself? He says, "Same Kyle, different profile pic. It's Vikings. It's Kyle." I know exactly who it is, man. It's always good to chop it up with you. He says, "New profile pick for the 23-24 season. Excited for the QB series. Think head coach O'Connell let Kirk be himself and show swag when Zim didn't." I wonder if it was a Zim issue. We know Zim can be a hard ass. We know what Zim is all about. But I don't know if Zim was the reason Kirk was so buttoned up. I just think that's who Kirk had been. I think more so it was his teammates kind of bringing that out of him. We've seen the emotion out of Kirk before, though. So, in Washington, you like that. And, all of the things that have transpired, we've seen emotion out of him. So I think there's this misconception about Kirk Cousins that he's swagless. And again, he's a choir boy. And look, he is a preacher's son. So, there is that. But at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins has always played with a fire, going all the way back to his Michigan State days. So I think that's an invalid, narrative that Kirk doesn't have any fire and he's like a robot. I know in Washington, there was this day-to-day meticulous planning of his day that couldn't be disrupted. And he's always been process-oriented, which is why you have people like Cam Jordan talking about, right play what do you say? Slow, think slow, right play. We call him Kirk Cousins or whatever the hell he said. There's this perception around the league that Kirk Cousins is a loser, and he wants to do everything the right way, and he's always going to make the right play even if it's the wrong situation for the right play. Like, you can't, like, I get it. Going through the process, this check down on 4th and 7 is the right throw. It's the right play, but it's 4th and 7 and the game's on the line. So you can't throw a check down to a guy that has no chance of catching this ball and running. Like, there's a defender right on him. This check down isn't the right. So you can't throw it away, obviously. Throwing it away might be one of the better options. Checking it down, you can't do that in a 4th and 7 situation. You can't go through the process and say, well, the process says got to do this. And that's what Kirk does. He does the right thing all the time, even when that right thing is the wrong thing in this particular situation. And that frustrates people. I think Kevin O'Connell did have something to do with not only Kirk's swag this year, but just the level of play. Kevin O'Connell, I believe, had previous experience with Kirk Cousins back in Washington. And I believe that he tailored an offense that was really built for a guy like Kirk Cousins to exploit. And obviously, Kevin O'Connell, an ex-player himself, younger, can relate to the players. I think a lot of his, ability to relate to the players also allowed them to be themselves. And again, not having Zim there, Zim is a buttoned up, old school mentality type of head coach. So there wasn't a lot of that going on. There wasn't a lot of ice being rocked on planes and things of that nature. So yeah, you're probably right about that. But I think Kirk was having fun because the Vikings were winning. And I think ultimately that's what trumps everything else. Had they had that same season under Zim, there might have still been, because there was time when Zim was in the locker room dancing with the players and shit that year. You guys went to the NFC Championship game. Zim was having some fun. He was letting his guard down a little bit. When you win, it's fun. When you're not winning consistently, it's not fun. The Vikings were the second best. A lot of people forget because they got bounced from the playoffs. The Vikings were the second best team in the NFL last year in the NFC. Rather, the Vikings were the second best team record-wise in the NFC last season. They were the 2 seed. The problem was they got bounced in the first round, so it's easy to forget that they were the 2 seed. But at the end of the day, or they were the 3 seed? Were they the 3 seed? They were the 3 seed, excuse me. I think the 49ers ended up leapfrogging. No, I think I got that right. The Cowboys ended up being what exactly? Cowboys did not win the division, but I think they ended up being the 5 seed. And they went to Tampa and won. Yeah. So the Seahawks were the 7 seed. They went to San Francisco. I feel like that's how that went. The 1 seed always plays the lowest seed remaining. And the Eagles came off the bye and they played the Giants because the Giants beat the Vikings. I think the Seahawks were the 7 seed. They were the last team to get in. So that would make the 49ers the 2 seed and the Vikings the 3 seed. So the Vikings were the 3rd best team in the NFC. And for much of the season, they were the 2nd best team in the NFC. And the 49ers overtook them probably 2 games remaining left in the season. I think with 2 games remaining, they probably overtook them. They got hot. But they had fun last year. The Vikings won 12 games or whatever, 12 or 13 games last year. They had fun. I think that's more or less why you saw Kirk, doing the things that he did. But I won't discount the fact that Kevin O'Connell was there. And there was not this suffocating energy there like Zim seem to have brought to Minnesota. There was actually an opportunity to exhale last year. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy watching Kirk because I am a Kirk Cousins fan, unlike most people. And I watching the trailer, he got his ass. I mean, I remember after the Washington game last year talking about Kirk Cousins, and so many people like to talk shit about Kirk because of his late game shortcomings. We'll call it that. And specifically in Washington, he's been clutch in Minnesota more so than he hasn't been. It was the opposite in Washington, even though he had a lot of game-winning drives, and he had like so many people ignore those because in the biggest moments, the absolute biggest where you had to have it, he didn't play his best, and that's the things that stick out the most. They're not going to tell you about the Tampa Bay game where he comes back from 24-0, or they're not going to talk about the Eagles game on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, whenever it was, that clinched the division in 15, on the road after he had the brain fart of taking a knee instead of spiking the ball before the half that cost us an opportunity to score points. They're not going to talk to you about those games. They're not going to talk about some of the games where he authored these crazy drives to lead us to victory. They're only going to talk about the games in which he struggled. The Giants game at the end of 16. Those are the types of games that they're going to talk about. But I've always said this about Kirk, and this is a very underrated aspect of why you should really give Kirk Cousins his flowers. He doesn't miss games. You know how many quarterbacks don't play 16, now 17 games every year in an NFL season? The best of the best don't play all 16 or 17 games. Kirk Cousins doesn't miss football games. And it's not because he doesn't get hit or he doesn't get hurt. He's just a tough SOB. And that Washington game in particular, and I know they're going to highlight it in this show, he got his ass whooped in that game. As a member of a fan of the opposing team watching that game, and knowing Kirk, I walked away with even more respect for Kirk Cousins because we beat his ass up and we hit him over and over again. And there's a clip of him not getting up. Remember, he left that game briefly for like 2 snaps. And Nick Mullins had to come in the game for 2 snaps. And Kirk was able to come back in. We tore him up. I mean, we beat him up from the first possession all the way to the end of the game. And he hung in there and he made plays. And he hurt us in that fourth quarter. When they needed him the most, Kirk was throwing dimes. Let the Washington fan base tell you, though, that he never does that. Anyway, I've got a different recollection of what Kirk Cousins' career in Washington looked like. And I think I'm really going to enjoy this series because I am a Kirk Cousins fan. So anyway, I digress. Let's see if there are any other comments. Make sure I didn't miss anything. I didn't. This one is from Comacel Brown, who writes, "Man, Snyder had a blackmail blackboard. That's some real gangster poop." So I'm assuming you're talking about the Gruden emails that were leaked that ultimately forced him to resign, and he's probably blackballed from the league at this point. As long as Roger Goodell is an owner or is the commissioner of the NFL, which at one point it seemed like he was going to be gone soon, and then now they're talking about a contract extension. As long as he is the commissioner of the NFL, John Gruden will never work in this league again. So, yeah, look, we always knew Bruce Allen and company. I didn't know if it was Snyder specifically, but we knew Bruce Allen and company, they had something to do with those leaks. Something to do with it. And it was probably more so Snyder than Bruce Allen, because I think John Gruden is boys with John Gruden. So it was probably Snyder. And this is why when we heard Snyder, pretty much saying, hey, y'all don't want the smoke. I got shit on all y'all. I got dirt on all of y'all. I really don't want the smoke. That's why these owners are like, look, get his ass out of here. They want him gone. They got to go about it the right way, because the last thing they want to do is get rid of Snyder and then have a new Snyder problem with an owner that just got here that has no plans on leaving. So if you're going to get rid of Snyder, you want the next dude to come in here and fix the problem, not be a new problem. So they wanted him gone, though. They wanted Snyder gone, and they got their wish. I'm not surprised by any of that stuff. We know Goodell leaked the emails for sure, because Gruden, called him all kinds of names, emasculated him and everything. So he had a axe to grind and a vendetta against Gruden. He's like, oh, really? That's how you feel about me? Okay, I got your ass. You won't work in this league again. And so definitely Goodell. I wouldn't be shocked if Snyder's involved either. HHC Lunar writes, you think Jets getting Hard Knocks could hurt or help them? Let's just say I don't want my team on Hard Knocks. It depends. It depends. So them being reluctant to do it doesn't help. I feel like if you embrace it, you're better off because of it. Like the Lions embraced Hard Knocks. We saw the season that they had. I know that they started out 1-6 at one point, but we saw how they finished up the season. They embraced Hard Knocks. I think the teams that are forced to do it and are reluctant, and again, I've heard this so many times. I believe it. Once you get into the scheme of things, it's not your job to adjust to the cameras. It's the Hard Knocks crew's job to adjust to you. So once you get into the flow of training camp and having to make decisions and practice, they're not thinking about the cameras. They're not like, don't let me say this, the cameras are on. Because it's not their job to adjust to the cameras being on. They can say and do whatever they want, and HBO has to then go back and edit the things out that they can't use. So I don't know if it'll really truly be a distraction. It's only a distraction if you allow it to be. Because again, now, if something crazy happens, like the year the Raiders were up there and Antonio Brown had his feet frozen in cryogenics and all of that shit, yeah, it's going to become a distraction if he's about to get into a fist fight with your GM. Yeah, that becomes a distraction if we're watching that unfold. When Chad Johnson headbutt his then wife and then had to sit down in the office and get cut by then Miami Dolphins head coach, what's the dude's name? Oh my God. I can't think of Joe Philbin. Oh, poor Joe Philbin had to cut him. Yeah, that's a distraction. You're damn right it is. When things like that transpire, it's absolutely a distraction. If you just go about your business as you normally would, whether the cameras are there or not, you'll be just fine. I think with Aaron Rodgers being there, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers has ever been on Hard Knocks, though. So I can't say with, somebody that's done it before. I don't know if there are many players on their team that have gone through Hard Knocks. But again, I don't think it'll be I'll say this. I don't think it'll be a distraction as long as nothing crazy happens. It's only a distraction if you have some kind of crazy altercation or some player does something stupid and now it's a headline and now it's being shown for all of us to see on Hard Knocks. That's when it becomes a distraction. But if it's a normal training camp, no, I don't think it's going to be a distraction at all. All right. And I do think the Jets are getting on Hard Knocks. I do. I do think they're going to end up on Hard Knocks. JP writes, Lou, man, been a minute. It's always good to chop it up with you. JP says, how do you feel about Lillard finally asking out of Portland? I knew this day would come eventually, because at some point you get to that, you get to a point in your career, and Dame has reached that point where it's not about, loyalty. He's already done that thing. He's played, like Russell Westbrook was the same way. If you recall, he never, demanded a trade out of OKC. That wasn't his style. He wasn't going to do it. He wanted out, but he wasn't going to demand a trade. But you get to a point where you're chasing a chip. I'm in the prime of my career, because remember, in the NBA, prime of your career is different than in any other sport. Maybe baseball. You could be 45 years old and not hit your prime till you're 38 in baseball, like a pitcher, which is crazy. But basketball is a grown man's league. The NBA is a grown man's league. So the older you get, now, obviously, you get to a point where athletically you lose a lot, and so your game is not the same. But Dame never relied on athleticism, so his game is going to be just fine. He uses his athleticism and his quick first step to get to the rim off of his shot, but Dame is a jump shooter. He's a shot maker, so he can finish around the rim. His game will age just fine. So he's not going to fall off a cliff and his game's going to deteriorate right before our very eyes over the next 3 or 4 years, because he's getting up there in age. He's going to be just fine. But he's at the point of his career now where I want to win. I want to be playing meaningful games in, March, into April, and into May, and hopefully finally playing some games in June when it matters the most. And it's not going to happen in Portland. And he knows that. They know that. But he's such a big part of the Portland Trailblazers that in the NBA, and I've already laid this out for you, you don't stand a chance. Like, you got to have one of those dudes. And Dame is at a point now where he wants to be able to play meaningful basketball. He's made his point. He made his statement. He's shown that, hey, I'm a loyal dude. I'm not for all of this, teaming up, linking up, all of that stuff. He's already made his point abundantly clear. But now it's about establishing a legacy. And, I mean, Dame, he'll tell you, if I don't win a championship, my legacy is still solidified. And that's true. But you play the game to win a ring. And at the end of the day, he at least wants a shot. And he's not going to get that in Portland. And for whatever reason, he's identified Miami as where he wants to go. And I think it's because of the Heat culture, honestly. It kind of aligns with who he is as a person and a player. And so I think that's why he wants to go to Miami. He doesn't really want to go anywhere else. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you forced him to and sat down and made him craft a list, he'll probably be able to come up with 3 or 4 teams he wouldn't mind playing for. But Miami is where he's pretty much told his agent, that's where I'm trying to go, and I really don't want to go anywhere else. So make it happen. Figure it out. I'm happy for him. I wanted, if there's one player in the NBA that doesn't play for my team that I would love to see win a ring, it's Dame. I don't care about any other players like, oh, I would like to see. Hell no, I don't want CP3 to win a goddamn thing. Y'all know how I feel about him. And if Russell Westbrook never wins anything, cool. I don't care. It's a lot of dudes in the league like that. I don't care. Paul George never wins a ring. I don't care. That won't be any skin off my back. Paul George is a cool dude. Never win. Doesn't care. Don't care. Damian Lillard is the only dude in the league where I'm like, yo, I would love to see him get a ring. So I'm happy for him, honestly. Anyway, all right, let's get to the last segment of the show and garbage time. So we are now, what is today? The 12th. We are roughly a week or so away from training camp. Once training camp starts, everything kind of falls into place thereafter. What I want from you right now, quickly in the comment section, what is the single biggest thing you are looking forward to once training camp hits for your specific team? What is the one thing that you are looking for from your team as they hit training camp? The single biggest thing you cannot wait for, because most NFL teams are hitting training camp the end of next week, the middle to end of next week. So I think it's going to be a lot of rookies reporting on the 20th and the 21st and 22nd. There's going to be a lot of that going on. And you know, veterans will be showing up 2-3 days later. And then we get into the shits. And then after that, it's on. Right? So I want the number one thing that you're looking for from your team once camp hits. Let's see. I'm gonna give y'all some time to put that in there. I can tell you for my team in particular, the first thing that I'm looking to see is how this team responds to Eric Bieniemy on a daily basis and the impact that he has. It's one thing to have him yelling and to have that interaction for a couple of days in June or a couple of days in May, but in you know, day in, day out, that grind, him being on you. I want to see if there's any pushback. I want to see how all these players respond, the energy that he brings, because we've had energetic coaches before. But I want to see if this turns into a well-oiled machine, or does this thing have some holes in it? And I was talking to my wife today about Eric Bieniemy, and I said, here's the thing, and you know, he's not the head coach, and that's a good thing about this, but we've seen this before where a coordinator gets a head coaching gig from a successful place, and the buy-in is 100% initially, because all you've got to say to the players is, I've been to the mountaintop. I know how to get there. Follow me. I can show you the way. We've seen Matt Patricia do that. We've seen Romeo Crennel do that. We've seen countless other guys, Charlie Weiss, do that. We've seen all of the Belichick disciples. Josh McDaniels is about to fail for the second time, right? We've seen all of these guys say, hey, I know what it takes. Joe Judge. We've seen all these guys say, hey, I know how this works. Follow me. And it's a lot of yelling and screaming. That necessarily wasn't Romeo Crennel and the way he went about business. But we see a lot of these dudes that come in with this hard-ass approach. And if you don't get results initially, people start turning a deaf ear to that shit. I'm cool with you yelling at me if it's getting us results and we winning ball games. But if we doing this same shit and you doing all this yelling and we out here getting our ass kicked, this shit ain't gonna work. So I want to see the buy-in from the players. I want to see how this thing goes. Again, you're not going to get anybody pushing back in August. Okay. Now, tempers flare when it's hot outside and you've been getting after it for the last 2-3 weeks. That's going to happen. That's natural. But I just want to see how all of this comes together. And then, of course, Sam Howell and his development. Anyway, I don't see any comments from y'all. Y'all suck today. I'm gonna just keep it a buck with y'all. Y'all suck today, but it's all good, man. We in the dog days of summer, man. So I understand how this goes, but the amount of participation today was extremely low, extremely low. Come back with more energy on Friday. I can't even guarantee you that because Fridays are a little hit or miss with me. But Monday, I'll be providing all the juice Monday because I would have watched this series, and I'm gonna have a lot to say about it. So anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I look forward to coming back and chopping it up with y'all on Friday. I think I'll be here on Friday. I lied. I don't think I'm going to be here on Friday. I think I'm going to be out of the office on Friday. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be gone on Friday. So I might not see y'all till Monday. So you got your homework. I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend and stay safe. Y'all know what it is. God bless and good night. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.